commissioner's gasoline money 2 years in a row, which put every county commissioner in the state in a bind trying to keep up rural roads and rural bridges. These things are counterproductive to growth, simply counterproductive to growth. I've talked to Mike Neal in Tulsa with the Greater Tulsa Chamber of Commerce and his counterpart Roy Williams in Oklahoma City, and both of them have told me similar stories about talking to corporate CEOs who ask the rhetorical question, why should we invest in Oklahoma when you're not? And that's a tough question to answer. You know, if you're out trying to talk a company into moving to the state, the only good answer is we are. We have started investing in our own people. That's going to start in January of 2019. We're going to improve our education system. We're going to improve the health care of the people of the state of Oklahoma. We're going to start bringing down prison population instead of having our penitentiaries get bigger and more crowded every day. We're going to start funding the Department of Mental Health Smart on Crime proposal to provide drug, alcohol, and mental health treatment facilities across the state of Oklahoma. We're going to do these things, number one, because they're the right thing to do to take care of the people of this state, but more importantly, to some, we're going to do it because that's what's necessary to bring business into Oklahoma or to encourage existing businesses to expand. We're going to invest in our own people and make this the kind of state we want our children and grandchildren to live in or to come back to. So that's my plan. The campaign is shaping up well. We feel the winds at our back. We like the polls. You know, they all show us within the margin of error, and our own poll showed us 2 points behind, which I think is the perfect place to be. If I can't be 20 points ahead, I would rather be 2 points behind. Because 2 points behind, we just work a little harder, don't we? We work harder. We go knock on more doors. We make more phone calls. We send out more mailings. We do everything a little bit harder because we're just a little bit behind. And I hope we stay that way until November 5th. And on November 5th, I want us to top that 50% curve and go into November 6th, Election Day, running strong, running ahead, and winning this thing for the people of the state of Oklahoma. I have neglected to introduce the chairman of the Edmondson for Governor campaign, Linda Edmondson.
Glad to be here. I just posted a picture of you guys on Facebook, and I said I was so sorry I could not post the smell of the barbecue to go along with it. And I really live on the campaign trail from meal to meal. I do want to report I got breakfast in Ponca City this morning, and Jason, who's with us again at lunch, was there at breakfast, and you know, a good diner breakfast is the thing for me, and I do want to report, therefore, that we have barbecue to go from here, because we do have to hit the road probably before I could get it all scarfed down. So I'm taking care of myself. My campaign motto is, if you can fry it, I can eat it. So, but we're barbecue. Thank you.
We went by a booth at the Tulsa State Fair that had pizza with like fried scorpions on it.
Where do you see your strongest demographics? Is it the older, the younger, in your college?
It runs across.
I'm saying this so hard we need to work on.
Well, I tell you, the most difficult demographic to track is 18 to 25, and it's not getting them to vote for me. It's getting them to vote at all. So we really need to work on getting young people interested and activated and motivated. And I believe if we can get them to the polls, that I will get more than half of them. But it's just a matter of making sure they're registered and go vote. So I do well. I hate to say this in front of Miss Linda, but I do well among women.
Well, yeah.
Is it Edmondson charm?
It's probably Linda that does it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
Probably
right.
because of Linda.
I'm married to it.
That's what does it. That's a good question, and we study that every time a poll. We look at the cross tabs to see what's what. And I think we do well among what I describe as Republicans who read. Republicans who read the morning paper, who study the issues, and actually care about what's going on, more so than maybe their own bank account. We've got a good shot at them. When the runoff was over, you know, the two things that happened, one was that ad 12 hours later. The other, by the end of the week, we had gotten 5,000 plus new requests for yard signs. Now, this was, there wasn't a runoff on the Democratic side. There was only a runoff on the Republican side. And what that was telling me was people who voted for the other candidate weren't happy with the choice their party made. And I bet anything, most of those 5,000 requests were Mick Cornett supporters, Mick Cornett voters who were ready to support somebody else in the general election. We're seeing that, we're hearing it. People who have said to me, I'm a lifelong Republican, but I'm voting for you in November. And I welcome that. I started talking, we're gonna paint this state purple. You know, we're not gonna change it blue, and we're not gonna leave it red, we're gonna change it purple. Because we've gotta work together or we're not gonna get anything done.
That's great.
I can tell you I'm excited to hear you say that about the Medicare expansion. I'm chairman of the board of our critical access hospital here. We are, this year alone, $2 million in the hole for people coming to the ER and not paying because they don't have health insurance. That's just in a 3,500, little small town. Hospitals are closing all over the state because we're not doing the right thing. And we've got to change that. We have to. So we've all paid those federal dollars in to that, and we're not getting them back. We just gave away $800 million and that we paid in to take care of us. So good for that.
I've often thrown out the statistic that dozens of hospitals that don't know at the beginning of the month if they're going to be able to make payroll at the end. Are you in that category?
We're making our payroll, but what happened with us, we were not seeing patients for a long time. We were just kind of an ER. We were managed by a bigger hospital, and once we got a management company in where we upped our level of care for our patients, we now have about 15 people in our hospital every month. We're penalized for actually taking care of patients by Medicare. So we owe Medicare some money, but we're covering our monthly expenses every month, and our patient care, we've upped that so much, and actually taking care of people that are sick. And so anyway, it's these small hospitals are closing all over the state because they're not being managed properly. And it's a problem, so we need to fix it. We need rural care.
Let me tell you, she did discharge planning as a social worker at Muskogee Regional Medical Center.
Yeah.
Part of her job was, you have a company or somebody who can take you in, you have a plan for, how you're leaving.
It's just important. We've got to support our health care for our state.
Other questions?
Yeah,
Comment? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Nona.
Oh, the school situation, I see so much of the superintendents, everything being top-heavy and everything, and I know they probably have a big lobby. But at one time, Osage County certainly had a county superintendent to where our smaller schools, we have dependent schools that only go to the 8th grade, and those dependent schools were not required to have a superintendent because we had one that did all of the work. And that way they got to be more hands-on with what needed to be done with the kids and stuff. And then the legislature determined that every school had to have a superintendent. So we have 95 children in Avant, and we have to have a superintendent. It's ridiculous.
Would you prefer, and that's a serious question, prefer going back to the old county superintendent?
Certainly.
Elected county
Look
superintendent?
how much money we would save the school districts.
And if we went back to that on a county option basis, do you think Osage County would opt into that?
No, I wish they would, but no.
Everybody
wish
wants
they
to
would
get their own
too.
superintendent?
Yeah, I wish they would, but no, I don't think you can have that.
It would be nice, because look at the money you would save, and that money would go where it needs to be going in the classroom with the students and the teachers that are the ones that are doing the work. Because all of they're doing is pushing paper. And if you had somebody pushing paper for a county-wide deal, not all of them, I mean, the larger schools like Pawhuska certainly keep a superintendent there. But you don't need one with 95 kids that are 8th grade and down. That's ridiculous.
What?
And the money is astronomical.
I agree strongly with everything you said. I'm a 30-year veteran teacher. I agree strongly with everything you said. But I don't think that this is the climate we're having. I wish it were, but I don't think it is. If the people get a vote in it.
Yeah, if it's a good idea, and if the kids would benefit from it, then how do we get it enacted? What's the route to make
How did
it?
we get screwed over? It was the legislature that
Well,
determined we had to have it.
I think that was part of 1017, wasn't
Yes,
it?
it was.
One of the reforms in
Exactly what it was.
1017. So there was a trade-off. They got a huge increase in expenditures for education. They got lower class sizes, they got teaching assistants, they got all of that. But in exchange, we're doing away, and I know, at least I'm reasonably confident, that when they did it, they thought it was a reform.
But that just made us top heavy. And we need to have the people that are down, that are the teachers that are spending the time with the children, and they need to be compensated. They don't need to be on sooner care. They don't need to be on food stamps. Those teachers need to be paid properly. The administrators do not. We do not need all those people.
Well, I agree with you on the teachers, and what we did back in April, to my way of thinking, is the first step. It's not the solution, it's the first step toward a solution. And we're doing pretty well competitively on starting salaries, but we need to start upgrading after 5 years, after 10 years, with a master's, with a doctorate, to make sure that when our teachers become experienced teachers, that they're compensated appropriately, and we don't lose them then to Texas or Arkansas or Kansas or somebody else. So this is the first step in a series of pay raises to get to that point. The other reforms we're going to work on, and I certainly appreciate your advice on that. And I'll be mulling around how we go about cracking that nut going down the road.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments, suggestions?
Oh, I have one.
Yes.
Yes, okay, as governor, are you gonna respect and protect our sovereignty, our tribal sovereignty? Because we've kinda, as you know, out there, with the blinking lights, we've kinda had a little problem with that over past administrations, both federally and statewide. And we're still trying to resolve that. And, you know, and then plus too, you're not gonna go looking, well, the state has shown that we didn't want that wind catcher project. So what's the future of those, rest of those wind turbines and the alternative energy stuff? Because here in the county, those agents don't want it,
Well,
basically.
to answer your first question, absolute believer in tribal sovereignty. I don't think it's a theory, it's in the Constitution. That the supreme law of the land, the Constitution, the treaties entered into by the federal government.
Good.
And so there's no question that tribal sovereignty is a very real, and the wind catcher was a public service company operation out in the Panhandle that they've withdrawn.
Yeah, and it was gonna, you know, there, some of the alternate routes was gonna come through the county, some weren't, and, you
Yeah,
know.
the transmission lines
Right,
were
yeah,
coming
yeah.
this way, that's true. It's off the boards at this point in time. In the meantime, Oklahoma's moved into a number 2 position in the nation on production of energy from wind. So I doubt if wind energy is going away. But you raise a point that I think we've missed as some of the wind farms have gone into operation, and that is, what's your decommissioning plan?
Yes.
What is your decommissioning plan? And there needs to be either a plan on the books with the Corporation Commission or a heck of a bond to cover the cost of decommissioning in the event, well, not in the event, everything wears out.
Yeah, because those are going on
Absolutely.
5, 6 years and just going turning around and not doing anything.
Yeah.
Eventually, they're gonna start falling down.
So
Stands to reason.
the jurisdiction over that lies primarily with the Corporation Commission, and I'll be frank with you, I don't know if there's a decommissioning plan in effect or required. All I know is there darn sure needs to be this.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you.
I got a question. With healthcare expansion, the last time I read and understood, Indian Health Service was able to put in an act with the Affordable Care Act, the Indian Health Service Healthcare Improvement, Public Law 94-437. That's what it was in 76. But that name has changed over the years. How is that going to be affected with expansion? And do people really know that whenever they cuss Obamacare, they're actually cussing Indian health care?
Well, I doubt there are people who equate the two, and maybe they should do some more thinking on that subject. What I'm talking about is Medicaid expansion, not Medicare, and not health services per se. Medicaid expansion increases the eligibility for Medicaid coverage to 150% of the poverty level. That will bring 153,000 Oklahomans into the basic health care coverage. It doesn't give them any money. You know, they don't get a check in the mail, but if they get sick, they can go to the doctor and it's covered under Medicaid. How that plays into Indian Health Services, I'm not totally certain, although I'm certain that there are enrolled tribal members who would qualify under the Medicaid expansion, and then they would have a choice of what facility to go to, and whether to avail themselves of, well, it would be free health care either place, either
Yeah.
at an Indian clinic or at a local hospital.
Because I recently got into it with a friend of mine. It was over a Mark Wayne Mullins sign. And she's like, look what those Democrats did. And I said, well, I said as a pissed off Republican who learned that Mark Wayne had voted 68 times against the Obamacare. And under the Obamacare, IHS was able to slip in and finally become a law. The Public Law 94-437 was a law. I said, why do you take your mother to that clinic? Why do you take her to the hospital? Did you go to your employer and say, would you cut my income by 2%? Why would you do, if you're going to use it, why are you cussing it?
Good point. I hope they were paying attention to what you said. Yes.
The ICWA, I just read where the ICWA, excuse me, ICWA is, all right. Indian Child Welfare Act.
Oh, yeah.
It just got, said it wasn't valid anymore.
Who said it wasn't valid?
Texas. You're talking about the judge that said it's against their constitutional right, the Indian Child Welfare Act.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And I just wondered if
I have to look it up on Facebook. I think.
Well, that's not right.
Well, that would be a federal judge in Texas,
I believe it was, yes.
and
Dallas area.
I'm pretty sure that's going to get appealed. So let's see, Texas not in the 10th Circuit, but it would go to circuit court and then to the Supreme Court.
Because I work for CASA, so I deal with these kids, and I just wondered how that would affect their cases, since a lot of them were based on ICWA.
Well, it would have a great effect on it if the Indian Child Welfare Act is deemed to be unconstitutional. It would have a big effect on rights of children that are being placed for adoption and other issues like that. I'd be very surprised if at the end of the appellate route it is deemed to be unconstitutional, but Lord knows I've been surprised by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Shall we call Kavanaugh and ask him one?
Oh, God.
No.
I didn't.
Any other questions?
Mr. Colonel, I think you did a really good job of clarifying the fact that you don't plan on raising anybody's income taxes. And you just showed me a little while ago about your concealed carry, which a lot of people are, some of the ads have been trashing you over that. and tell us a little bit about your stance on agriculture. Again, if you wouldn't mind touching on those real quick. To clarify to these people that you're not gonna take their guns, and we're shut down your cow operation. So I would appreciate that if you would do that.
I'm not taking anybody's guns, particularly if you're holding today. No, I am a believer in the Second Amendment. I do have a concealed carry permit. I carried a sidearm 10 years when I was DA in Muskogee. Probably shouldn't have, but I did.
No,
Statute said I could.
That's what you do.
Yeah. Well, you know, I kind of enjoyed the law enforcement side of that job. I like, if I was gonna draft a search warrant, I wanna go with them when they execute the thing. I went to the scene of every homicide in Muskogee County for 10 years. Because I didn't know whether at some future date I'd be having to talk about the scene of the crime in front of a jury. So I did those things, and I have to confess, I kind of enjoyed that part of the job. You know, I had a Kojak light that I put up on the top of the wall. So I thought it was kind of neat. But I did learn a lot that way, and I did carry a sidearm the entire time. And when I went to Vietnam, I had an M16. I went through survival school at Camp Pendleton with the Marines. So I know about firearms. I know what they can do. I'm a Second Amendment believer and a supporter. But I'll tell you this, I'm not a supporter of arming teachers in the schools.
Thank you.
I don't think that's the answer to school security.
Thank you.
I'm also not taking away anybody's cows or pigs. I'm a supporter of agriculture, which includes animal agriculture, and intend to be so as governor, not just what's happening here in the state of Oklahoma, but also in helping to create more markets overseas for our agricultural products. Now, all I've ever asked, and I did this for 16 years as Attorney General, and this is mainly a problem because of the scale of agriculture today compared to what it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. The hog farms have gotten huge, the poultry farms have gotten huge, which is good. It means our products are going to be cheaper at the supermarket. All of that's a good thing. It employs people. That's good too. All I've ever asked is that they control their waste. If they're going to have a hog farm, they need to make sure their sewage lagoon is lined where that doesn't get into the groundwater. They make sure that it doesn't breach if there's a heavy rain and get into the streams. Because I believe in protecting our water. And incidentally, so do farmers and ranchers. And the people who live close to a large poultry operation or a large hog farm are very concerned about their well water, and are very concerned about the water in the streams on their property and other property. But as long as we're able to dispose of the waste in a responsible way, or to hold it in a responsible way, I'm all for promoting agriculture, even large-scale agriculture. It's good for the state, and it's good for our people. Does that cover it? Well, I would add, Linda grew up on a wheat farm in Ellis County. She is my #1 ag advisor. And,
That's very much short grass country, I need to. Frederick Drummond reminds me that every time I see it. It's buffalo grass out there. It's not the beautiful grass over there.
they did run some cows, and Linda was in charge of the chickens, which she slanders. She thinks chickens are stupid. That's her story.
Our chickens.
I never tried to keep chickens in one place, so I don't know about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I've got.
All right.
Appreciate you coming out. You've got this somewhere else.